Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. It's not even the spot in front of the neighbor's house. It's the spot in front of OP's house, which makes even less sense for the neighbor to feel entitled to it. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Saving a parking spot for our babysitter. My husband and I have a babysitter, 18-year-old female, come once a week. We've had this babysitter for over 3 years now, and back when we lived in an apartment, things were great. She was never late, and she lived in the same building, so there wasn't much concern about her walking back to her apartment. Last year, we moved into a house, and she suddenly started showing up late. She always complained that there was no street parking available, and that half the time she ended up at a public parking lot around 7 or 8 blocks away. Once she told us where she was parking, my husband would walk her to her car, but it was late and the weather was never good for that kind of walk, so on the days where she's working, I park on the street in front of our house, which opens up a driveway spot for her. The problem is our neighbor, who usually parks in front of my house, is out of a parking spot those days and has come to complain to me about parking on the street when I have a driveway spot available. I said street parking is first come, first serve, and we need that spot in the driveway for someone else, but he still thinks I'm being selfish. My husband says he can see both sides and that we should probably try to find another solution to the parking problem, but I don't think we should have to move our car so he can park in front of our house, and I don't feel comfortable having my very petite 18-year-old babysitter walking 8 blocks to her car at night. And our second story. Sad but true. Hey y'all, it's been a minute. Unfortunately, it's happened again, but in the worst way possible. Now, I will say that I did fit the description of this kind of worker, but I definitely didn't do this kind of work at the time. So here's what happened, and bear with me, it's kind of long. January, my family and I all caught COVID. My daddy made the rule, no one goes out and no one comes in. So after my last trip out of the house, I stayed home. Apparently, this said rule didn't apply to him in his mind, so he decided to go hang out with people without a mask, caught COVID, passed it to my mother, and my mother passed it to me. When I found out my daddy had it, I cried, and as sad as it is, I didn't cry on his behalf. I cried for my mama because she already has high blood pressure, diabetes, etc., so adding COVID to the list scared me. Tuesday morning, my mama and I went to get tested. Made a list of things we'll need and gave it to my brother through text to bring and leave at the door. Wednesday morning, Mama was feeling worse, so we took her to the hospital. Oxygen level was low, so they kept her. Found out that she did, in fact, have COVID and pneumonia as well. Y'all know I cried again, right? So now I'm home with my pops, trying to work on myself and him and get the house ready for when she comes home because we were told she was getting better. I won't go into details of the 2 weeks Mama stayed in the hospital, but when she was coming home, Daddy asked her doctor, was she COVID and pneumonia free? All they said was that she was good to go, sent her home with 1 oxygen tank, no breathing treatment, and said they'll give her other tanks the next day. Tuesday, January 26th, my mama was not in the best shape when she came home, hyperventilating like crazy, but it never lasted over 3 minutes. January 27th, she was trying to get used to being at home. Now, I'm already a certified caregiver. I've been her personal caregiver, and I used to work outside of the home before Daddy made that rule, so I was excited to take care of Mama again. January 28th, Mama's 65th birthday. I walked in that bedroom and said, "Hey there, old lady, how you feeling today?" She looked at me and said, "I'm fine, but if you call me old one more time, I'ma hit you." I laughed so hard I snorted. Her petty threats used to crack me up. Then I noticed it's my mommy's birthday. Turn up time, and I said, "Hey, Ma, did you know today was your birthday?" Again, she looked at me and said with a smile, "Yeah, I knew. I was waiting for your slow behind to say something." I smiled at her and said, "You made it 65 gracefully, Mama. I love you." Somehow she knew something was going to happen, but I was in denial. January 29th, 11 a.m. Daddy called me in the room and said Mama was hyperventilating again, but it was well over 3 minutes. Hell, it went well over 7. I rushed in the room and Mama couldn't calm down. Now, I'd already had my scrubs on because when I'm taking care of my mama, I'm in professional mode. So I'm in the room checking her pulse, her blood pressure, and everything. I said I was going to call an ambulance. She didn't want me to, but I looked her in the eyes and said, I'm calling them anyway. Now I'm going to paint a small picture. I live in Haynesville, Alabama. You can look it up and see it's a small little city. You'll drive right through it if you didn't notice the signs. We have an ambulance here, but they were on duty. So 911 sent an ambulance out of Montgomery, Alabama. Check and see how far that is from Haynesville. I called twice to see where they were because Mama wasn't calming down. Now I'm getting scared. She was on her back and I kept trying to get her up. It wasn't working. She was moving her leg and that's how I knew she was still with me until her leg stopped. Now I'm trying to perform CPR. I didn't care if I caught COVID again. Damn it, I'm not going to lose my mama. But the more I blew air into her mouth, the more the air kept coming out. Nothing was working. Her lips and fingers turned blue, so I just held her hand until someone showed up. Then finally the ambulance came in. Pause. Do I apologize for it being so long? I had to paint the picture for y'all to understand what's about to happen. So they came in. I quickly moved out of the way, hoping and praying she just passed out, again in denial, but when they checked her, Mama had already flatlined. Mama was gone, y'all. The woman I shared blood with. She died with me holding her hand. I screamed, hollered, kicked, knocked crap over. I had a full-on fit. Then one of the men walked up to me and said, "Don't you think it's unprofessional of you to have this episode over a patient? You do know you're not supposed to become close to the clients at any point, right?" Y'all, I'm already crying hard, not to mention I have to call my big brother and tell him that our mother is dead and she died at home. With everything going 1,000 miles per hour, my words won't come right, so I politely told him, "I know her." He gonna tell me that it doesn't matter. As a caregiver, we're not allowed to be that close unless we're off duty, and even then, if they're not blood-related, we can't talk to the patient. I'm still crying, mind racing, can't even believe that Mama just left us, and he's trying to start. So I look at him and tell him, "No, I literally know her. She's my..." Man cuts me off and asks for my company name and number and my boss's name so he can tell her how unprofessional I'm being. Right now, I'm not in the mood, so I gave them the name, number, and everything and went back in the room with Mama and Daddy. He held on to her and wouldn't let go until the coroner came. So it was my job to call everyone and tell them we just lost Mama 2.5 days after she came home. First, my brother. While I'm calling him, I hear the man OTP, "Yes, this is Timothy, name change, and I'm here at Mrs. Duncan residence. One of your employees here is being very unprofessional in her job, and I would like for you to talk to her. I don't want her to get in trouble, but please find some training for her so she can perform better in her line of work." So they asked for my name. He asked, and I told him my last name was Duncan. Didn't click right then for him until I heard them say, "Sir, I don't know who you are, but Miss Duncan has been on leave ever since January 1st. Mrs. Duncan is her mother." So apparently she was taking care of her mom. Wait, did Mrs. Duncan pass? What happened? He looks at me all shocked. I rolled my eyes and kept talking to my brother, telling him, "Get here now, Mama just left us." My brother was driving like a bat out of hell. The man came up to me and said he apologized for accusing and assuming and he's sorry for my loss. I didn't hear any of it. I was close to passing out because everything sunk in right there that I will never hear my mama voice again. My brother got there and he had a fit. Now my 5'8.5" behind got to calm my 6'8.5" brother down. When the coroner got there, the men left in the ambulance. For the past few months, I've been trying to cope. I'm back in the caregiving profession and every day gets a little bit easier. Now that it's just me and Daddy, I'm trying to do everything in my power not to lose him next. And our last story. Neighbor achieved his lifelong dream of being on the HOA board. My neighborhood in Florida has a very good HOA. For the past 20 years that I've lived here, they've done a good job making sure the neighborhood looks nice, throwing an annual block party, and generally minding their own business. Until this old dude down the street achieved his lifelong dream of being on the HOA board. He'd take his nightly walk with his phone out, documenting each and every infraction. I wish I was joking when I say he was out there with the tape measure looking at how tall grass was in different yards. This is a guy that would speed up when he saw small children playing in the street. and several of the parents on the street had already lodged complaints with the police about this. My father always wanted us to have a treehouse to play in when we were children. Sadly, he passed away when my youngest brother was only 2, and the one he built in our backyard had to be torn down due to hurricane damage. Luckily, my family planted an oak tree in our front yard right after we moved in, and about 15 years later, it was big enough to put a small treehouse in. I built a simple platform with some supporting legs and a wooden ladder for my youngest brother to play in with his friends. One day, while I was washing my car, an official from city code enforcement shows up. He said he was summoned by the HOA because of an illegal structure being erected. After talking with him for a bit, we came to the conclusion that not only was the treehouse legal, it was none of the city's business. The guy honestly seemed rather annoyed that he'd been called out for this. Next, we started getting threatening letters in the mail from the HOA's lawyer, threatening big fines for the perceived damage to the property value in the area. IIRC, it was something to the tune of $100 a day for every day the structure wasn't taken down. My mother, not being able to afford a lawyer and me not knowing better, eventually complied when the letters started coming daily. I'm glad my brother got to enjoy it for a little bit, but I was so bitter at that old man down the street. My mother called me and said that the old dude had finally moved out to be closer to his family. His house is scheduled to be demolished by the new owners. I honestly couldn't be happier that any trace of his presence is erased from this neighborhood. My brother's too old for a treehouse now, but I might just build one together with my brother. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.